Good afternoon, Lou. Thanks for being on our podcast today. You are the godfather of podcasting and travel. Certainly, obviously, you're a major authority on Disney, but thank you for being on the show today. We appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I know we had a chance to talk to you at PodFest in Orlando, and you were kind enough to agree to come on the show. And given how busy you are and all the things you're working on, we certainly appreciate your time and your being willing to share with us. So tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, how did you were an attorney, right? You were a lawyer?
So I was a lawyer in New Jersey, which are two things that I ask that you don't hold against me. Like, I swear I'm a nice guy. So I was an attorney in New Jersey. I had a computer consulting company on the side because I didn't like to sleep very much. Always had this love and passion for Disney. I've been going to Disney since November of '71, like 3 weeks after the parks opened. My parents put us in the family truckster and drove down to Disney. I've been going really, was going as a kid with my family once or twice a year. And I was always in the service business. I had this idea of making something once and reselling it. And I really just wrote the book that I wanted to read, which was about Walt Disney World. And I sat down, I wrote a Walt Disney World trivia book, very, very long story, longer. The book turned into a second book, turned into a podcast in early 2005, really when it was in its wasn't even in its infancy. It was like in the fetus stage.
It wasn't even born
podcasting.
Yet, right? That's way back there.
Which is why I call my show WDW Radio, because people didn't know what a podcast was. So I had to sort of convey that it was a spoken word medium. Fast forward a couple years, at this little thing that I just did as a personal challenge on the side to see if I could write a book and get it published and try this podcasting thing. I said, I think I can turn this into a business. And I left my practice and sold my house and lost money, on the sale. But I had to sort of give myself a chance to see if I could turn this thing that I love into the thing that I do. And fortunately, I ended up, on the right side of when you make a decision, when you take a leap of faith like that, you're either crazy or it works out well. So hopefully I worked out.
And how many? That's been you moved to Orlando? What, 2008? I think you said
2008. Yeah.
Okay, so now you've built quite a business. I mean, you're coaching and you're publishing and events and that sort of thing. Obviously, your different revenue sources and all that. So you've kind of turned it into quite the enterprise. It sounds like it's been a fun, interesting ride those years of doing all that.
It has been a one, like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. It has been a very fun, very circuitous journey that, I think sometimes we think that we know the path that's ahead of us, right? Whether we go to school, have the job, whatever it is. And I love the fact that I don't know where the finish line is. And there's always something new. And, we talked about sort of the different revenue streams and ways that I sort of share the things I love, not just on the Disney side, but on the entrepreneurial and the business side. And I love the fact that, what I do is different every day. I still love what I did. The day I stop enjoying it will be the day that I stop doing it. So I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, I know you're known as the Disney guy, but I know from seeing hearing you speak and looking at your website, you do a lot of coaching, a lot of people, you're public speaking. So you do a lot of business things in general, not just specifically Disney related things, correct?
Yeah, it really started, I'm a sponge. I want to try and learn as much as I can. I love going to conferences, and probably back in 2005 or 6, I was at a conference and I was talking to some folks that I met there and was telling them my story. And they said, you should be up there, telling your story and talking about podcasting. And the next year I was, and that started this secondary career of not just speaking at conferences, but getting brought in to speak to businesses and events, conferences and schools, leveraging the lessons that we can learn from the Disney parks about customer experience, customer service, leadership lessons we can learn from Walt. So there's sort of the two sides of my business and even two sides of my speaking and coaching business where I try and, I want people to feel the same way I do when they get up every morning about the thing that they do. And I think that life is too short not to do what you love every single day. So I want to help people live that life that they're supposed to. And I also like being able to speak on a larger scale and help businesses as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I enjoyed your talk at PodFest. When I saw you on the calendar, I'm like, I'm going to make sure Heather and I were on the front row. Really wanted to hear what you had to say, and enjoyed it very much. And I enjoyed the business side of it too, because we've all got to make a living right before it's all over. So, yeah, thanks for the background on that. And let's go ahead and talk about Disney a little bit more. So I mentioned we talked earlier, and about 20% of our listeners are in Florida. Some have never been to Disney. Some have never been to Florida. Mm-hmm. And some people are Disney files or people that go a lot. So why don't we start off by talking about, let's say somebody's never been to Disney, they want to bring their family. It's known for being a great trip and being quite expensive. So let's start off talking about, okay, what does a first timer look for? How do you save money, and maybe how you book it? What's the best way to book a trip?
So this is a multi-layered onion of a question, because the days of let's just go to Disney, let's get in the car and let's just show up at the gates of Magic Kingdom and wing it are long over. And that's not, that's not me being hyperbolic when I say that, because it's very important for a variety of reasons that you really plan ahead before you go. You can, but you really shouldn't just show up, because if you do show up at the gates at 10 o'clock and buy a ticket, you're already way behind where you need to be in order to sort of get the most out of the experience. It's why I recommend a lot of times people seek out the services of like a, Disney specialized travel agency who can help you through this process, because it has gotten much more complicated. Dare I say a little bit cumbersome. There's 4 parks, 2 water parks, 30 resort hotels, Disney Springs, and a lot of planning has to go in terms of what tickets to buy, when to go, where to stay, making advanced dining reservations, lightning lanes, Genie Plus. Like, there's all these different layers that if you don't know before you go, it could really detract from and even sort of potentially take away from the type of experience that you can and should have when you go. And a lot of travel agents, I've been partners with a travel agency for 18 years, and they're a fee-free service. So if you reach out to them, it's not costing you anything to work with them, but you're able to leverage their experience and their expertise and their relationships to help answer the questions that you don't even know that you have before you even step foot in the door.
Excellent. Now, who's that agency?
It's Mouse Fan Travel.
Okay.
They specialize in Disney, and they've
Obviously
been doing
Mouse
it for a
Fan
long.
Travel. That sounds like
Sure.
a Disney Mouse Fan. It's in the name, right? The mouse. Yeah, and I'll put that link in the episode notes for.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you guys you can use them. So there's no charge for that. They just do that. They get paid
by Disney. Sure, they get paid by Disney. So their services come, for free. And it's important that you have somebody. Look, going to Disney World is also now it's an investment, right? It's a financial commitment, it's an investment, and having somebody that you can trust and rely on is critically important. So it's who I've used for years because it's who I trust, and it's more importantly, it's who I trust to recommend to my audience and community.
Excellent. Thanks, Lou. Yeah, that's good. All good information there. You get into things, I'm like, okay, go, Lou, go. All this, some of the details on this. But I know people who've gone. One of our daughters is a huge Disney fan, and she loves the planning. But there's so much. She starts going through what she's going to do. It's like she's got it dialed in completely.
It's a military operation.
It's like it's like travel planning on steroids, right? I mean, I love to travel plan. That's kind of the heart of what our podcast is about, is to helping people plan their Florida trips and give them ideas. But Disney's another gear, seems like, but she optimizes it and loves it because she feels like they get the maximum out of it. But I know she spends hours on it, but she'll tell you like the things you're talking about how to do that. I know in one of your books, I think it was the 102, one of the books you published, which is on Amazon, was 102 tips and then 40 free things at Disney. That kind of is a good place to start. Obviously, your website obviously is a good place to start too.
Yeah, so I've written a number of books in addition to the trivia books over the years. So I have one book, which is it's 102 ways to save money for and at Walt Disney World, because it's the number one question in nearly 20 years of doing this that I consistently get as time goes on, as families get bigger, as it does get more expensive to go to Disney. It's really important that you find some of the ways, and there are ways to save. Like, there are ways to save not just $10 here, $20 here, but hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, right? By knowing when to go, where to stay, different types of available discounts and promotions that are going on, as well as 101 other different ways that you can. And those things add up, right? It really does add up. So I think Disney sometimes is an easy target, especially for major media, to be like, oh, look how expensive it is to go to Disney World. Yes, it can be, without a doubt. But Disney also has so many different ways to allow it to become more affordable and accessible to individuals, to families. There are value resorts. There are different times of year that you can go that the resort rates are lower. There's free dining packages. There's discount and bounce back offers. So there's a lot of different ways that you can save, but it is knowing those tips and tricks is the wrong thing. It's just knowing the information that's out there.
Interesting. So Lou, you talked about best time of year to go. What is I mean, I guess if you're thinking about the least crowds, right? The least crowded,
Right.
the most open it's going to be. Combine that with the weather, maybe. What's the best time of year to go? If you're going, somebody's asking you, Lou, when should we go? We're homeschool our kids. We can go anytime you want. What would you say?
Right, because I'm going to give you the typical lawyer answer, which is it depends.
It depends.
Right? It depends. Because usually the best time to go in terms of weather and dollar figure might not necessarily be the best time to go for you and your kids, or you're a teacher and your kids are still in school. So those two don't necessarily meet. But there are sweet spots throughout the years, right? You need to obviously avoid the major holidays, avoid summer if you can. And I know for a lot of people, it is when you go on vacation. Disney knows that too, right? It's not just Disney; it's everywhere around the country. Prices sort of flex depending on supply and demand. But if you can go, February and March, again, avoiding holiday weekends. If you go early September, right after most kids go back to, so you mentioned homeschooling. If kids who go to school are back in school in early September, the weather's just starting to break, the crowds are a lot lower, the hotels are a little bit more at a discounted rate, that's a really nice time to go. Same thing for October, November, as the weather starts to cool a little bit. Those first few weeks in November, as long as you avoid things like Jersey Week and some of the race weekends, there's a few little pockets here and there that you can find. And again, that's where like a travel agent who has experience and sort of knows what the crowd calendar sort of looks like can help you find those spots and pick the right balance of time and weather and money that fits right for you.
Yeah, I know in the cruise industry they call that shoulder season. Like October supposedly is that's when there's empty rooms, and if you're not, if you're able to travel, then say you don't have kids or got empty nesters like us, that's the time to go. Sounds like the same situation there.
And for Disney, you talked about a significant portion of your audience being in Florida. Disney has Florida resident rates, not just for Disney Cruise Line, which is a great way to get on board, but in the parks as well too. So there's Florida resident tickets, there's Florida resident rates. So finding out some of those different discounts that are available is really going to help you sort of save, again, a pretty significant amount of money.
Yeah, I see a lot of people. We live in Tampa. I see quite a few people driving around even here with the sticker. The season pass holders. I see those pretty regularly because we're on Tampa. We're on the Disney side of on this side, so we're an hour and 15 minutes. A lot of people don't know how close we are actually from say the Tampa area and all that goodness. So if somebody's going to go, has never been before. I know there's 4 parks. What would you recommend? Does it make a difference like what park you go to first? Is there, how would you plan that? Because I hear people say we're going to take our kids, we're going to go 3 days, we're going to do a park a day kind of thing, which I think is pretty common.
Yeah, it's the parks have gotten so big and crowded, and there's wait times, there's things like that. I'm going to give you the depends answer again, right? Because if your kids are 3 and 7 years old, they're going to appreciate Magic Kingdom more than maybe going to Epcot or Disney's Hollywood Studios. If you have teenagers, right, maybe they want more thrill rides, right? Then you start asking, okay, what rides, what park should I go to first? Is Disney's Animal Kingdom, the first park to go to? Would they still be interested in Magic Kingdom? Yes, I think Magic Kingdom is. Look, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a 7-year-old kid trapped in a much older body, but Magic Kingdom is still my favorite park to wander and explore. And there's a combination of classic Disney attractions and like the latest thrill rides. Epcot too. I love Wandering World Showcase, going to all the different countries, sampling all the different foods. But again, too, there's thrill rides. There's rides, generational rides for everyone in the family, really for every park. So before you go, especially if your kids are a little bit older, talking with them, right? Planning. I think part of the fun is half the fun is getting there. Half the fun is also planning. In getting your kids interested and invested and sitting down and watching videos and say, okay, what do you guys want to do? Where do you want to go? My son's a big Star Wars fan. Okay, we have to make sure we make time to go see Galaxy's Edge at Disney's Hollywood Studios because that's a can't miss for him. And then you sort of reverse engineer your trip that way.
Interesting. Yeah, one of our episodes recently, Lou, we talked about getting kids involved in travel and the planning process at an age-appropriate level. And one of the things we recommended at one point was like we did this with our kids. We'd go to New York City a lot when we lived in Maryland. We'd take the Amtrak up or drive up or whatever. And we'd like, okay, everybody pick one thing, and what everybody's number one thing, we'll do it. Whatever you want to do. You want to go to a restaurant, you want to see some attraction. So the kids got excited because they knew we actually had to do 3 things, but everybody's number one, we did it. Mine was to go to a church at a bar in Brooklyn and drink beer during church, which we did, which was fun. So that's another story. But that was my thing. So we did that. So it's yeah, and the kids got excited because they get excited because they know they're going and they get ownership of it rather than mom and dad planned it. And then they get excited and they start getting the research and they get that enthusiasm for travel, which is why people like us do what we do, is because you get so excited about a trip and seeing something different or new or exciting you haven't seen before. That's the joy, right? So, so yeah, but I don't think about teenagers going, but I know teenagers, you went every year, so you must have loved it as a teenager. And
I did.
At that age, what parks had been built? Was Epcot built then when you were?
Yeah. So again, not to sort of give away my age, but yeah, I mean, it was Magic Kingdom and then Epcot. But I was sort of in that sweet spot for Epcot because it was so radically different than Magic Kingdom. It sort of got this reputation, for better or for worse, of being an educational park. I think it's more of an edutainment park, but I love that. I loved the science and the technology, and I still believe that Epcot has remarkable learning opportunities for kids. My parents would take me out of school. I would do my homework in the car ride down because we didn't have electronic devices back then. But I would do my homework, and then I found there was so much to learn at Epcot, both on the Future World side as well as the cultural exposure on the World Showcase side too. So for me, that was sort of like the bright, shiny object was Epcot Center, and I still have a very soft spot in my heart for that park.
Interesting. They have a food and wine festival there every year, don't they?
They have multiple food and wine festivals. There's a
more or less ongoing.
Yeah, so it's all. Mostly? I mean, it almost is. Honestly, they have a festival of the arts in the early part of the year. They have Flower and Garden Festival, which is my favorite, in springtime. They have the Food and Wine Festival, which runs for a very long time in the fall, and they have a Festival of the Holidays that runs obviously during the holiday months. Each one is very different in scope and in theme and in types of food and entertainment and educational opportunities there. So it's a reason not just to come, but to continue to come back.
Yeah. So a Florida resident would obviously, somebody who lives close by or can get, or has the means to get there regularly, would enjoy that.
Absolutely.
The changes. Yeah. I know Busch Gardens and other parks do sort of similar things. Mm-hmm. I just know Epcot is known for that. And I see ads for that all the time. So of all the restaurants, I've listened to your podcast recently. We're talking about some different restaurants. What's your favorite restaurant in all the parks? Do you have a single one, or maybe give us 3 or 4?
It's the Perfect Child, right? It's our favorite child. Like, we have it. We don't want to say it out loud. I'll give you a couple. One of my favorite restaurants on the planet is actually in Disney Springs. Disney Springs is an entertainment, shopping, dining venue, which you don't need a park ticket to go to. So I call it the 5th theme park. I spend more time there than I do in actually the parks, which is true. I was there yesterday for a business meeting and a lunch, and I think there's some amazing restaurants there. The Boathouse, which is an incredible waterside restaurant, which has a huge menu. It's absolutely fantastic, and the service is remarkable. Inside Walt Disney World, I love Japanese culture and cuisine. There's a restaurant, an upscale restaurant called Takumi Tei in the Japan Pavilion in Epcot. One of the best meals I've ever had anywhere, period. And now you're going to make me pick a third one, aren't you? You know what? Gosh. I was going to go back to Disney Springs again, but I'll try and, you know what? I'll take you over to Magic Kingdom, because there's a wonderfully themed and amazing, great food too. You don't feel like you're in a theme park here. It's called Skipper Canteen, and there's great story and great storytelling that happens there. And the food is a great complement to it as well.
Interesting. I think a good point about Disney Springs. I actually was there recently because the House of Blues concert venue's there, and I went to see a band there. And I'd heard about Disney Springs and had never been there. And I'm like, I think people don't realize it's free. I mean, there's it's the one free, one of the few free things at Disney. It's interesting you call it the 5th park, because there was a lot to do there. I took my nephew to see a band there, somebody we liked. It was really, and that's a nice venue, the House of Blues. So if you're in, that's another tip. If you're in the Disney area, check the House of Blues schedule. They used to have the Sunday brunch there. I don't know if they have that gospel brunch. Did they bring that back? Brunch, Okay, good. They brought that pandemic. They shut that down. That's good to know. Gosh, there's different ways we can go. Just a lot of questions to ask you. So, like, if you're like today, if you're going to go to Disney, you just right now you decide where I'm going to go today. Where would you go? Which park? What would you do?
If I was going to go to Disney right now today, I'd probably go back to Epcot again. The festival is still going on. The Flower and Garden Festival is still going on. There's amazing food, not just in Epcot itself, but I think there's 23 different marketplace kiosks I think this is when Epcot is at its most beautiful, because the flowers are in bloom and it just looks gorgeous. There's great entertainment with the Concert Rock series. But you'd probably find me sitting up in Japan in the shadow of the bamboo by the waterfall, just listening to the Japanese music, having a probably very large plate of Japanese food.
What's your favorite meal there? What do you got? Are you a sushi guy, or what do you like?
I'm a sushi guy.
Okay.
There's a new restaurant that just opened there called Shiki Sai, which is definitely a top 5 for me, and authentic Japanese culture and cuisine.
Interesting. I was at a business meeting at the Animal Kingdom a couple years ago, or maybe more than a couple. And one of the restaurants we ate there in the hotel there was just fantastic. The food, and they had some coffee was some of the best coffee I had.
Oh yeah, yep.
And I think that's the thing with Disney, is that its the reputation is it's great but expensive but great. It's like you get what you pay a lot, but you get a lot. I mean, I think a lot of families, it's a dream trip. It's a once in a lifetime thing for some families, I know.
The one thing I can say is I've never felt like I haven't gotten my money's worth at Disney.
Really?
And I've been
You've been there more than probably anybody.
And
your whole life.
I've been going there, since it's started to come out of my pocket. Again, there's ways to navigate that and work within your budget. But, I understand for a lot of people, this is like the trip that you save 3 to 5 years for. So it's important. And it's why Disney's built such an incredible reputation on exceeding expectations and over delivering. And that helps too, right? That helps in, we did get our money's worth, not just because we got to ride a lot of rides, but that interaction that happened with our cast member, the way my kids or grandkids looked and felt and the way they were smiling, like that's the thing that you take home. It's not about checking off, did we hit every single ride in Magic Kingdom?
Yeah, I've heard about that. I think they have what they call the Disney way. Like there's a certain way they train people. It's a cultural thing within the way they train their employees. So what are they, cast members? I think they call them
cast members.
Yeah. And I've heard there's a training program there. I've heard of some college kids going there, like a leadership thing. I've heard is incredible. I've heard great things about that. People that said if you get a chance to go there, that's something to definitely take advantage of. I guess that's part of what they teach there, is that high level of customer service, attention to detail.
Exactly. Yep.
All those good things. So there's some other things I've always heard is interesting. I've heard that there's you can go bass fishing in Disney. They'll take you out.
You can. I've done it before.
You have?
So
did you catch one? Did you catch anything?
It's a catch and release.
Okay.
And you do, because the guide that's taking you out, he knows that body of water, right? He knows exactly where to go and fish. So you want to go, like, it's a great, father-son thing to do. Couple of brothers, couple of buddies going out. Spring break, you go out, the captain takes you out. You get some amazing views of the parks and resorts. You're going to catch fish, right? You're going to catch fish and you're going to have a great time. If you don't want to bait your hook, I'll help you bait the hook. And there's so many, that's what I mean when I talk about layers of the onion. There's so much, because I hear people say all the time, wow, my husband's not a Disney guy. I'm like, well, that's okay. You got to find their entry point, right? What is the thing that is it the multiple holes of championship golf that is here? Is it the food? Is it, the ESPN? Is it, Wide World of Sports? Like, what is going to be their entry point? And then they sort of find their way into the other things as well.
So that sounds like the research. Somebody needs to do the research of what does my husband like, or my son, or whoever, or somebody who's maybe a Scrooge, the Disney Scrooge in the family who thinks it's for kids or something like that.
There is, but they can be converted too.
Yeah, sounds like it. We've got grandchildren now. Heather and I do. Don't talk about my age either. But we're planning on taking them to Fort Wilderness when they get a little bit older. And we've watched YouTube videos, and some people do some great content. Yeah, and that's a great way to stay on property. It's cheaper if you've got RV or rent one or whatever the case is. But any experience with Fort Wilderness, or any advice for people that want to camp? For those of you who haven't heard, that's a campground that's part of on property, right? You can take the bus there. But any advice there on?
Yeah, so I've never actually. I'm not a tent guy, but there's also cabins. So if you want to stay in a cabin, they're actually in the process of completely redoing. Like they're literally taking out the old cabins and putting new cabins in. Much more modern, even more comfortable and upscale. But you can sort of camp there, from literally pitching a tent to there's third-party companies. You can rent an RV. They will bring it there. They will set it up for you. And all you need to do is show up. So you can enjoy the camping experience without having to figure out how to drive this 40-foot, RV, like your Clark Griswold, and get that same type of experience. And it's beautiful there. And once again, you forget that you are in Central Florida, you forget that you're within the four corners of Walt Disney World.
Interesting. So I guess that would make a lot of sense. So you want a travel trailer or whatever you want, they'll bring it, right?
Yep.
So which people flying in, you're not going to, you can't fly with an RV, obviously, or people just don't have a tow vehicle, whatever. They can just,
you can rent
and
it.
you do that through the park, or do you just look online and find a third
There's
party?
usually third-party companies that'll set that up for you. Yep.
Okay, that's a good tip, because that might save us from buying a $50,000 travel trailer. It's a little bit of an investment there. But
I have friends do it every year, and they love doing it. And this is a great tip too. If you're able to travel to Fort Wilderness during the Halloween or the Christmas season, it's a bonus, because what ends up happening, there's multiple loops throughout Fort Wilderness. The campers will decorate their campsites for Halloween. They'll have trick-or-treating. They'll decorate for Christmas.
Oh, really?
It's like a second theme park that's sort of put together by the people that call Fort Wilderness home, and they love being able to sort of share their love of Disney and the holidays. I get like a golf cart with some friends, and we just drive through every year, and I do like live video showing. And it's one of my favorite things to do, because I love the creativity and the passion of people with some really elaborate setups.
Now, you put that video on YouTube or on your website? Where do you put that?
Both.
Both. Okay. Or link it from YouTube. That's interesting. Now, do you? I know some people stay on property. Some, which I know is more convenient, and some people stay off to save money. What's your advice on where to stay? Would you recommend? I mean, it's obviously convenient to be on property, but you pay for it.
It's not just convenient, but it's also, you're surrounded by the magic, right? You're in that Disney bubble, which, there's definitely reasons to stay off property, right? People come from the UK, they're coming with a big family, they want to rent a vacation home because you're here for 2 weeks, makes absolute sense. But if you're able to stay on property, I very, very, very strongly recommend it, because you don't have to, when your day starts or when your day ends, you don't have to sort of go in or go out of that, that warm, cozy blanket of Disney. So you've got the Disney themed hotels, right? All the hotels are themed very differently. And there are value resorts, right? So you can stay within that Disney magic for the same type of price that you might get 5 miles, down the road, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But I will tell you, at the end of the night, when the kids are tired and it's hot and you got the diaper bag and the kids are screaming and you're like, we got to get to our car. We got to sit in traffic. We got to drive another half hour to get to our resort, walk up the stairs there's also a trade-off. Like, there's a bit of a trade-off too for saving that money. So I tell people, maybe, if it means pushing your trip back a couple of months or another half a year to be able to stay on property, do it. But I would definitely, that's where a travel agent will help you sort of navigate the rates, because I think there's this perception that there's this exponentially higher dollar figure to stay on Disney property, and that's just not true.
Yeah, I know. I don't think a lot of people are aware too. When the park closes, there's a big traffic jam. I mean, you can be coming out of Orlando at 9. When's the park close? 9?
9, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've come out of Orlando at 9 o'clock, heading back towards Tampa. I'm like, what is all the? Oh wait, the park's just closed.
the fireworks just
rush
ended,
hour.
right?
Yeah, fireworks are over. The rush hour, and the fireworks. I've heard, confirm this or not, that Disney's the number one consumer of fireworks in the world.
Yeah, they are
close to it.
Yeah, so they are the number one purchaser of explosives in the country. Like, it's them in the military. Like,
yeah, right. Obviously different reasons. Yeah. Right. Interesting. Because I think because it's a Magic Kingdom, the show's every night at Magic Kingdom.
Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Disney's Hollywood Studios throughout the year has fireworks.
Okay, so it's not just the castle, in Magic Kingdom. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so I guess they've got more than a pretty good sized full time crew that's just the fireworks guys.
Oh yeah,
or gals that do all that. That's interesting. So for somebody who's, let's say some of our listeners maybe are local, or they've been to Disney a lot, they know their way around. If somebody's like, hey Lou, tell me something I don't know about Disney. I've been there a lot. I think I know the whole place back to front. What are some of your secrets, your favorite gems to drop on people, the so-called experts that don't have the experience you do?
It's a hard question to answer because, so for example, I've written like 5 books. I've been podcasting 20 years, every single week, not including a live video show every week for the past 17, 18 years. And I've never repeated a topic. So when you talk about the things that people don't know, it's a very deep chasm because you don't know where people are on,
right, or what their interest is, and that sort of thing.
Or what their interest is. As somebody who has been going again since the park opened, I still am fascinated because I still learn something new every single time I go. It's why I wrote the trivia book, right? It's not to spoil any of the magic. It's to make you appreciate and understand what goes into building this. So, for example, I think a lot of people know that, Magic Kingdom, because in Florida, we don't have basements because the water table is so high. So the Magic Kingdom is technically built on the second floor of the property, but underneath it, there's this whole sort of working city and system of underground tunnels and offices and, spaces where the action is really happening, right, for the cast members, so that you don't have to see any of those utilities, etc., up on stage, which is what you are when you're in the Magic Kingdom. And that's part of what has always fascinated me is this is a real working city, 24/7, 365 days a year, that so much is invisible to us as guests. And there's ways you can see it, right? There's tours and things that you can take, because it's a fantastic from, an operational and a logistical perspective of how they're able to make this run so effectively, so efficiently, every single day in a way that is, not just invisible, but it is. I still believe this is a very special place.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you can actually take a tour. There's a tour that you can take of all the. That must be fascinating to see. I was not aware. I'm sure most people just don't know that. But then you don't see people moving things around because it's like a cruise ship. It's all in the back end. You just don't see it.
You'll never see somebody like carrying a garbage bag. Next time you go to the parks, look around. Like there's nobody ever sort of moving garbage throughout the parks because it all happens underneath. That's interesting. So what are they working on now? I mean, like what are the things that Disney's building or adding? Or you mentioned that they're doing some things at Epcot, I think, and other things. What's coming up? Like what's on the horizon that people would be interested in? There's been a transformation of Epcot that's been going on for a number of years. I think this summer we'll see sort of that last-ish phase of it open. Tiana's Bayou Adventure is going to open probably in the next few months in Magic Kingdom, the transformation of Splash Mountain to the Princess and the Frog theme, which looks absolutely incredible. Next level audio animatronics, great storytelling, new music. And then this summer, Disney has their biannual D23 Expo, right? This ultimate Disney fan event where usually we start to get some of the larger announcements being made. I think we're going to get some more information about expansion of Magic Kingdom to an area behind Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, as well as expansion and some new things that are coming to Disney's Animal Kingdom, including Encanto and Coco and Indiana Jones.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. So do you get special access to any of this? I mean, you're obviously an influencer. I mean, you obviously follow it, but do you get to do early trips or anything, any inside information?
I will say, look, I'm a fan first, and I get to do, I'm very blessed and very fortunate and grateful that I get to do some very, very cool things. I just was brought out to Imagineering in California to get a sneak peek at some of the things that are coming. So I do get a chance to experience some things and, get a little bit of information about some of the things that are on the horizon. And share what I can when I can on the show and live and doing events and things like that. So, as somebody who loves this place as a fan first, even if I didn't have the podcast, like I'd still be wide eyed and just, mouth agape.
Even after all these years, you're still
even
as
after
much
all
of a
these
fan.
years.
71 it started, right? So you used to still the whole, what is it? I mean, what is it? It's just the experience, the feeling for you of being there.
Yeah.
Like you talked about kind of being wrapped in that
There
feeling.
is. You forget about everything that's going on in the real world, right? You sort of walk through that portal when you walk into Magic Kingdom, and it all just sort of gets, stripped away from you. And you forget about taxes and money and work and politics and nonsense. And you have permission to be a kid again. And I do, man. I think that there's something special about this place and the way it makes people feel. And people are just nicer to each other here. I don't just mean cast members, but even guests are just nicer to each other. And, like I said, I was just in Epcot a couple of days ago, and I wanted to kind of just clear my head and get away from the laptop and working and things like that. And I just sat there in my favorite spot in Japan, and I just sort of felt it kind of come over me. It didn't cost me anything other than a ticket to the park. I wasn't worried about riding a ride. It was just sort of being in that place. And I think for those of us like me who live here or moved here or have annual passes, I think when you get it and you understand just what a special place this really is.
I mean, it sounds like the annual pass obviously has a lot of advantages if you're reasonably close, because you can just go and just sit, right, and just enjoy it, being in that environment, and not feeling like I've got to get all these rides in because my ticket was whatever, right? That you get
and if you're going to go, the break even now, I think it's like 10 days or so. If you're going to go to Walt Disney World more than 9 or 10 days in a 365-day span, the annual pass makes absolute sense, because not only does it save you on admission incredibly, but you also get discounts. You get discounts on food. You get discounts on merchandise. You get discounts on hotel rooms. There's a lot of benefits to being an annual pass holder too.
Interesting. So I guess there must be a lot. I mean, I think of the annual pass for people that live in the area, but obviously people have the means to come regularly.
Oh yeah.
There's got to be thousands of people who live, they come 3 or 4 times a year. They stay for a week. That sort of thing. There's got to be lots and lots of those people. And it's nice that they do that, because it's nice that they can do, I think all the parks do that to some degree or another, to just to get people, to keep people coming. But I wasn't aware about the discounts. That's a good tip too. Yep. So, because Heather and I were thinking about getting season
annual
passes
pass is
for
the
ourselves.
number one way to save money.
Is it?
Without
okay,
a
that's
doubt.
That's numerous. Obviously, depending, as you see, you said about 9 days.
Depending on how you go, right? Depending on right.
Is the break point. Now, is parking included with that, or is you still pay for parking? How does that work?
So if you have an annual pass, your parking is included.
Okay, that's another reason to get an annual pass. Sounds like awesome.
Yeah.
Lou, before we sign off, any last tips, any last thoughts or suggestions for folks out there?
Plan ahead, but don't think of it as a chore, right? Think of it is a joy. Planning is half the fun. Get help, especially if you've never been there before. Go to, whether it's Mouse Fan Travel or your own travel agent, work with somebody who can help you navigate the many, many layers and levels of potential complexity that there can be. This way, when you get there, you don't have to sort of worry about too much. You can just go and enjoy it. And it doesn't matter if you are 7 or 70. I promise you there's something for everybody.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Lou, this has been fantastic. Thanks for sharing all your wisdom and for giving time to our listeners. And I'll put all your links and all your social media and links to things that you do on the episode notes. So thanks for your time, Lou.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.